Questions. Question. How often do you practice making questions in English? Well, you're in luck because in today's lesson, we are going to practice making questions. Let's go. In today's lesson, we are going to be practicing making questions. And you're also going to answer those questions as well. So today's lesson is a 2-for-1 lesson. You will make questions and you will answer the questions. At the end of this video, or maybe from the halfway point, there will be a speaking challenge. It's the active part of this lesson. Make sure you watch until that point because that's when you can practice making the questions and answering the questions. Questions are very important in English. We use them a lot, and it's very important to learn how to make good questions. In today's lesson, we will practice making how often questions. A how often question is used when I want to know the frequency of some event. I want to know how many times are you doing something in a week, or maybe how many times are you doing it in a month, or how many times are you doing it in a year? So if I want to know that frequency, how many times you or someone is doing something, then my question is how often? I have already done a video using how often. And in that lesson, we practiced the questions, but we used indefinite adverbs of frequency. So we answered our questions using words like always or sometimes or never. In today's lesson, it's more advanced. We are going to learn a more difficult way, a more definite way to answer the question. We will use definite adverbs of frequency. Before we go over definite adverbs of frequency, let's go over how to make the question. If I want to make a question, the first thing I need is how often. Now, in today's lesson, most likely you're going to be asking me, right? So the subject is you, all right? So we're going to go, how often do you? And then we must use a verb. The verb is going to be the present tense verb, not past, not ing, not future. So how often do you? Now, if we change the subject, then just be careful. If I'm asking about he or she, then my question becomes, how often does he, or how often does she, plus that present tense verb. Let's practice that. Let's make a question. Now, if I want to know about the frequency, how many times do you eat ice cream? Right? Let's ask that question. So my question would be, how often do you? Now, ice cream, the verb is going to be eat. So I use eat and then ice cream. So how often do you eat ice cream? If I change the subject to he, or if I change the subject to she, then my question would be, how often does she eat ice cream? How often does she eat ice cream? Okay, so now that we know how to make the question, let's go over how to answer today's question. Now, today we are going to use definite adverbs of frequency. Now, this sounds like a really difficult grammar concept, but it's just a word. Don't worry, it's actually quite easy to do. There are many definite adverbs of frequency, but I'll go over some of the more common ones and show you 3 or 4 different patterns. Now, first, we're going to use once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, And we can go etc. 5, 6, 7. So only the first two are different. So we've got once, twice, 3 times, 4 times. Next, we will have the word a. A means one. Okay, so I've got once a, twice a, etc. 3 times a, 4 times a. Then finally, we can have day, week, month, year. Now, of course, there are other words as well, but these are the most common ones. So if I put it all together, I could say once a day, once a week, once a month, once a year. Now, if it's 2 times, then my answer is twice a day, twice a week, twice a month, twice a year. So let's break it down just a little bit more as well. If I said once a week, that means in 1 week, the action happens 1 time. If I said twice a month, that means in 1 month, the action happens 2 times. Now, if I said, 4 times a year, in that situation, in 1 year, the action is happening 4 times. Now, let's look at the next pattern. The previous pattern was only 1 day or 1 week or 1 month or 1 year. Now, let's change that part. I want to have multiple days. So in that situation, the first words are always the same. So once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, etc. The word in the middle now changes. Now it's going to be every. So once every, twice every. And then finally, in this situation, we're going to say 2 or 3 or 4, however many days or weeks you choose, whatever number you choose, you put here. So 2 or 3 days, 2 or 3 weeks, 2 or 3 months, 2 or 3 years. So a sample answer could be once every 2 days. Once every 2 days. What does that mean? That means in 2 days, the action happens 1 time. If I said once every 3 weeks, that means in 3 weeks, the action happens 1 time. Now, if I said once every 4 years, once every 4 years, in that situation, in 4 years, the action happens 1 time. Now, what happens once every 4 years? We have a very big event that happens once every 4 years. Do you know what it is? If you know what the event is, leave it down in the comment section so I can check your answer. Okay, we have some more answers as well. Another option you have is you could use the words every day, every week, every month, every year. All right, so that just means 1 time in that day, 1 time a week, 1 time a month. The last one we will go over, the last sort of answers, definite articles that we will go over today is every other day, every other week, every other month, every other year. So this one means the same as once every 2 days. All right, so for example, once every 2 days means Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Sunday. Now, if I said every other day, it's the same meaning. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Sunday. So in 2 days, it's 1 time. Now, a lot of native speakers will use this every other day, every other week, because it's a lot faster to say than once every 2 days. So once you get your confidence, once you build up your confidence, try using every other day, every other month, every other year. Now, let's look at the rules of how we use these adverbs of frequency. Whenever we use these words, the answer must come at the end of the sentence. We don't put it at the beginning. We don't put it before the main verb or in the middle. We always put this answer at the end of the sentence. So let's look at an example. Let's try to do a sample question and answer. Now, my question is going to be asking about English. Study English. I want to know the frequency. And the answer, the information I have is Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So first, let's make the question. Okay, so for me, my question here is, how often do you study English? How often do you study English? Now, the answer I've given you here is Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So how do we answer that? So there are a couple of ways we can answer this. You could say, I study English every other day. Or I could say, I study English once every 2 days. Okay, let's look at another example. In my question, I have the word work. So we're going to make a how often question using work. My answer, I have Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So that's 5 days. All right, so first, what's your question? Here the question would be, how often do you work? How often do you work? And the answer has the word 5, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So that's 5. What's your answer? So here, my answer would be, I work 5 days a week. I work 5 days a week. Okay, so how's everybody doing? Does everybody understand how to use definite adverbs of frequency? If it's still a little bit confusing or you're not sure, just rewatch the explanation part of the video again, or just ask any questions you have down below and I will definitely answer. Also, this is a great chance for me to ask you, if you like this video so far, if you think it's useful to help you in your English, please subscribe to the channel, give me a thumbs up, and hit the notification bell. Okay, so that brings us to the active part of the lesson. This is where you get to speak English. This is where you will make a question. You'll make a how often question, and you will answer the question as well. I'll put up some hints up on the screen here. I'll give you some information about the question, and I'll give you some information about the answer. I'm not going to put too much information up there, so make sure you review how to make the question and how to answer the question. Also, if you need more time to think, just pause the video. Pause it, give yourself some time to think, and then unpause it when you're ready to speak. Okay, situation number 1. I want you to look up here at the question, the information. What is your question for this? What's your how often question? Okay, here, my question is, how often do you vacuum? How often do you vacuum? Now, a vacuum is a noun, it's a thing, but it's also a verb. So it's both. It's an action word plus it's an actual object as well. So it's a noun and a verb. So that's why my question was, how often do you vacuum? Now, look up here and what's your answer? Okay, so my answer for this question is I vacuum once a week. I vacuum once a week. Okay, situation number two. Situation number two, please look at the question information up here. What's your how often question? My question is, how often do you go to the gym? How often do you go to the gym? Now, again, look at the hint for the answer. And what's your answer? My answer is I go to the gym every other day. I go to the gym every other day. But I also could have said I go to the gym once every 2 days. They have the same meaning, but for me, I like to use every other day. So my answer is I go to the gym every other day. Situation number 3. Now let's look up here at the information for the question. But for this question, I want you to use the subject he. Don't use you. Let's make a question with the subject he. All right, so what's your question? Okay, so my question is, how often does he go to the dentist? How often does he go to the dentist? And if you look up here, you have your answer, you have your information. What's your answer? My answer is he goes to the dentist once a year. He goes to the dentist once a year. Situation number 4. Situation number 4. Let's look up at the question hint. What's your how often question? Here, the subject will be you. Okay, we'll go back to you. So the subject is how often do you? What's your question? My question is, how often do you eat out? How often do you eat out? So I have information about a restaurant. So if we're talking about a restaurant, a very common phrase is eat out. So my question is, how often do you eat out? And if we look at the information about the answer, what's your answer? Okay, so from this information, my answer would be, I eat out twice a week. I eat out twice a week. How about you? How often do you eat out? Do you eat out a lot? Do you eat out every week, every day? Let me know in the comment section down below. And situation number 5, the last situation, please look at the information about the question. What's your how often question? My question is, how often do you do laundry? How often do you do laundry? Now, this is a very unique phrase. In English, we always say do laundry. We don't really say wash clothes. Now, please try to remember this phrase, do laundry. And there's also one more, the dishes. You know, if you're going to be washing the dishes, in English, we say do dishes. So those two actions, do dishes and do laundry. It's very, very common in English. So try to remember those phrases. So the question here is, how often do you do laundry? So let's look at the answer. What's the information showing you? What's your answer? My answer here is I do laundry 3 times a week. I do laundry 3 times a week. Okay, so how did you do with all of those situations? Were you able to make all of the questions correctly? Were you able to also answer all of the questions? If it was difficult, just rewatch that part of the lesson and try again. Also, if you have any questions about this lesson, about the grammar, or about any of the questions and answers, just ask me down below. And if you think this lesson was helpful for your English, please do me a favor and subscribe to the channel. It's completely free. Give me a big thumbs up and hit the notification bell. I'm always posting videos, so make sure that you hit the notification bell because it lets you know when the next one comes out. So, until that time, see ya. Thank you very much for watching today's lesson. Today we practice how often questions and we answered them using definite adverbs of frequency. This is an advanced lesson, so I hope you enjoyed it and I hope it helps your English. And if you think it does, please subscribe to the channel, give me a thumbs up, and hit the notification bell. Until that next lesson, see ya.